5 young cave explorers illegally enter a sealed cave system abandoned after multiple explorers disappeared underground over the last 20 years. The tunnels are impossibly narrow. The oxygen drops deeper inside, and somewhere beneath the mountain, they discover evidence that someone is still alive underground. But the deeper they crawl, the more they realize something else has been crawling with them. Chapter 1. The Cave. Nobody was allowed to enter. 5 cave explorers disappeared inside Ravenhill Cave over the last 23 years. None of the bodies were ever found. After the 3rd disappearance, the government sealed the cave permanently. After the 5th, nobody even talked about reopening it. Because the disturbing part wasn't the disappearances. It was where the missing explorers were last heard. Not deep inside the cave, not near underground cliffs, not trapped underwater. All 5 disappeared inside a tunnel barely wide enough for a human body. A tunnel called the Squeeze, and according to rescue teams, nobody should have physically fit through it, which made the final audio recording even worse. Because moments before the last explorer vanished, he whispered something over the radio. "There's someone crawling behind me." Then the recording ended. 3 years later, 5 young cave explorers stood outside the sealed entrance of Ravenhill Cave, holding illegal climbing gear and making what would eventually become the worst decision of their lives. Cold wind moved through the forest surrounding the mountain while distant thunder rolled above the trees. Adrian Cross stared at the rusted metal fence blocking the cave entrance, then quietly muttered, "Adrian, this already feels like a documentary people watch after we disappear." Beside him? Jenna Vale smirked while adjusting the flashlight strapped to her helmet. "Jenna, relax. Half the stories online are exaggerated." Cole Mercer looked deeply unconvinced. "Cole, that's exactly what people say before horror movies start." Nearby, Sienna Brooks unpacked camera equipment from a backpack while trying unsuccessfully to hide her nervousness. And standing closest to the cave entrance, Elias Ward studied the darkness silently. Too silently, because unlike the others, Elias wasn't there for adventure. He was there because his older brother disappeared inside Ravenhill Cave 4 years ago, and nobody ever found out why. Adrian noticed him staring at the cave, then softly asked, "Adrian, you sure about this?" Elias didn't answer immediately. The forest around them had become strangely quiet. No insects, no birds, nothing. Then finally, Elias whispered, "He went missing somewhere down there." Silence settled over the group. Rain began falling lightly through the trees above them. The sealed cave entrance sat hidden beneath the mountain like a giant crack in the earth itself. Dark, narrow, wrong somehow. Warning signs covered the metal fence. Extreme collapse risk, no entry under any circumstances, multiple fatalities recorded. Cole read the signs quietly. Then looked toward Adrian. "Cole, we can still turn around." Before anyone answered, Jenna grabbed bolt cutters from her bag. "Jenna, too late emotionally?" The metal chain snapped loudly, and for 1 second, everyone froze, because the sound echoed strangely from inside the cave, far deeper than it should have, like the mountain was hollow. Sienna frowned immediately. Sienna whispered, "Did anyone else hear that?" Nobody answered, because suddenly, cold air rushed outward from inside the cave, hard enough to move the trees around them. Not normal wind. Breathing. Cole stepped backward instantly. "Cole, nope." Adrian forced a nervous laugh. "Adrian, scientifically speaking, caves do not breathe." Elias finally turned on his flashlight, then quietly said, "Let's go." The tunnel entrance was far tighter than expected. The deeper they walked, the narrower the cave became. Within minutes, they could no longer stand upright comfortably. Sharp stones scraped against their backpacks while loose dirt crumbled beneath their knees. The air smelled damp, old, almost rotten. Sienna whispered behind them. Sienna, I hate this already. Nobody disagreed. Further ahead, the tunnel narrowed again. And then they finally saw it. The squeeze. A tiny opening between jagged rocks, barely large enough for a person to crawl through sideways. Complete darkness waited beyond it. Cole stared at the narrow gap in disbelief. Cole whispered, You're telling me people willingly crawled through that? Jenna shined her flashlight through the crack. The beam disappeared into darkness almost immediately, too deep to see the end. Elias moved toward the opening silently, then quietly said, My brother's last GPS signal stopped beyond this tunnel. Sienna looked horrified. Sienna, Elias, nobody even knows if the tunnel is stable. Elias crouched near the opening carefully, then softly whispered, That's exactly why nobody found him. Thunder echoed faintly outside the mountain somewhere far above them. The cave suddenly became colder. Then, a sound echoed from deep beyond the squeeze. Soft, faint, almost impossible to hear. Scraping, like someone slowly crawling through stone. Everyone froze instantly. Cole whispered, Please tell me that's water. The scraping stopped. Silence filled the tunnel. Then something breathed from the darkness beyond the narrow passage. Close, very close. Sienna's flashlight shook violently in her hand. Then suddenly, a voice whispered softly from the darkness ahead. A human voice. Elias? Every explorer froze, because the voice sounded exactly like Elias's missing brother. And then, the crawling sound started moving toward them. Fast! Chapter 2. The Squeeze. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. The crawling sound rushed through the darkness beyond. The squeeze rapidly. Stone scraped. Loose dirt shifted. Something was definitely moving toward them. Fast. Cole immediately backed away from the narrow opening. Cole whispered sharply, Cole, we need to leave. Right now. But Elias stayed frozen near the crack in the rock, because the voice had sounded exactly like his brother. Not similar. Exact. Then the voice whispered again from deep inside the tunnel. Closer now. Elias, help me. Sienna looked pale instantly. Sienna whispered, That's impossible. Adrian's flashlight trembled slightly in his hand. Adrian quietly asked, How far does this tunnel go? Nobody answered, because suddenly, the crawling stopped. Silence filled the cave completely. Then something scraped against the stone directly on the other side of the squeeze. Very close now. Jenna slowly crouched beside Elias, then whispered, Jenna, Elias, move away from the tunnel. Elias ignored her. His eyes stayed locked on the darkness beyond the crack, then softly whispered, Elias. Daniel? Instantly, something slammed against the other side of the tunnel. Everyone jumped violently. Dust rained from the ceiling above them. Cole shouted, Cole! Nope! He immediately started backing down the cave tunnel, then stopped, because the way behind them had changed. The tunnel they crawled through earlier looked smaller now. Much smaller. Adrian frowned immediately. Adrian whispered, That wasn't that narrow before. Nobody wanted to admit it. But he was right. The cave walls felt tighter now, closer, as if the mountain itself was slowly closing around them. Another weak voice echoed through the squeeze. Please, this time? The voice sounded injured, exhausted, and horrifyingly human. Elias moved toward the opening instantly. Jenna grabbed his arm hard. Jenna, what are you doing? Elias looked at her desperately. Elias whispered, If that's really him? Cole interrupted immediately. Cole, people do not survive 4 years trapped underground. Silence, because everyone knew he was right. Then suddenly, a flashlight beam appeared beyond the squeeze. Faint, shaking slightly in the darkness. Sienna gasped quietly. Sienna whispered, Oh my God! The beam moved closer slowly, and for one impossible second, they saw fingers appear through the narrow crack in the stone. Human fingers, dirty, bleeding. Elias immediately dropped to his knees beside the opening. Elias shouted, "Daniel!" The fingers twitched weakly. Then something whispered softly from the darkness. "It's cold." Adrian felt his stomach drop instantly, because something about the voice felt wrong now. Not fake, not supernatural. Wrong. Like someone trying very hard to sound human. Sienna noticed too. Sienna whispered nervously, "Why can't we hear him breathing?" Everyone froze. Because she was right. The cave was silent. Too silent. No movement, no breathing, nothing. Then slowly, the fingers bent backward. Too far backward. Bones cracked softly inside the narrow tunnel. Jenna recoiled immediately. Jenna whispered, "That's not possible." The flashlight beyond the crack suddenly turned upward, illuminating part of a face in the darkness. And Adrian nearly screamed, because the thing inside the tunnel was smiling. Too wide, far too wide. Its skin looked stretched unnaturally tight across its face. Its eyes reflected pale white in the flashlight beam. And somehow, it still looked exactly like Daniel. The thing whispered softly, "Elias." Then it started crawling forward again. Fast. Stone cracked around the squeeze violently as the creature forced itself through the impossibly tight tunnel. Bones snapping, skin tearing. But it kept crawling. Elias stumbled backward in horror. Cole shouted, "Cole, move!" Everyone scrambled away from the opening as the thing continued forcing itself through the crack. Its shoulders bent unnaturally, arms twisting against the stone, like it didn't feel pain at all. Adrian's breathing became uneven instantly. The tunnel suddenly felt much smaller, much tighter. The creature's face pushed halfway through the opening now, still smiling. Then suddenly, all the flashlights went out. Darkness swallowed the cave instantly. Sienna screamed somewhere nearby. Cole shouted, "Cole, turn them back on!" Clicking sounds echoed frantically through the darkness. Nothing worked. Then, a wet crawling sound echoed directly beside them. Too close. Adrian froze completely, because something cold touched his boot in the darkness. Slowly, carefully. Then a voice whispered inches from his face. Not Daniel's voice this time. Something deeper, something inhuman. "You shouldn't have come down here." And then, the cave began collapsing. Chapter 3. Buried Alive. The cave exploded with sound. Stone cracked violently above them. Dust filled the tunnel instantly. And somewhere in the darkness, something kept crawling. Fast. Adrian dropped to the ground, covering his head as rocks crashed through the narrow passage around them. Sienna screamed. Cole shouted, "Cole, everyone stay low." Another section of the ceiling collapsed behind them. Stone slammed against the tunnel floor, blocking the way they came from completely. Then, silence. Not normal silence. The kind that makes your heartbeat sound too loud. Adrian coughed hard, trying to breathe through the dust choking the tunnel. Then finally, one flashlight flickered back on. Jenna's. The weak beam shook violently in her trembling hands, illuminating the narrow tunnel around them. And immediately, everyone noticed something horrifying. The opening to the squeeze was empty. The thing crawling toward them was gone. Cole stared at the crack in disbelief. Cole whispered, "No, no, no." Sienna looked around the tunnel frantically. Sienna whispered shakily, "Where did it go?" Nobody answered, because nobody wanted to say the obvious possibility. If it wasn't inside the squeeze anymore, then it was somewhere else in the cave with them. Elias slowly moved toward the narrow crack again, completely pale now. Adrian grabbed him immediately. "Adrian, don't." Elias looked destroyed, then whispered, "That looked exactly like him." Jenna quietly replied, That wasn't your brother. Silence settled heavily around the group. The tunnel felt tighter now after the collapse. Much tighter. In some sections, the ceiling sat barely inches above their heads. Cole looked toward the blocked exit behind them, then quietly said, "We're trapped." Nobody argued, because the fallen rocks completely sealed the tunnel they entered from. No space, no gaps, nothing. Adrian forced himself to think clearly. Barely. Adrian whispered, "There has to be another exit deeper inside." Sienna looked horrified. "Sienna, you want to go deeper?" Before Adrian could answer, a loud metallic sound echoed through the cave. Everyone froze instantly. Clang, then another. Clang, like metal striking stone somewhere deep underground. Jenna frowned. Jenna whispered, "That sounds human." The noise echoed again. Closer now. Cole slowly shook his head. Cole whispered, "No person is surviving down here." Then suddenly, their radios crackled alive. Everyone jumped. Static filled the cave loudly. Then a voice whispered through Adrian's radio, weak, broken. "Please respond." Adrian grabbed the radio instantly. "Adrian, hello?" Heavy static answered him. Then the voice returned. "If anyone hears this, don't go deeper." Elias froze completely, because this time, the voice actually was Daniel's. No distortion, no strange tone. Just fear, real fear. The radio crackled violently again. Then Daniel whispered one final sentence. "Daniel, it wears our faces." Static exploded loudly. Then the radio died. Nobody moved. Nobody even blinked. Sienna slowly looked toward Elias, then whispered, "So, what was in the tunnel?" Before anyone answered, something moved behind them. Fast. Jenna spun the flashlight instantly toward the darkness farther down the cave. The beam caught movement disappearing around a narrow corner ahead. A human figure, crawling unnaturally fast on all fours. And for one horrible second, it turned its head completely backward toward them while moving. "Still smiling?" Cole whispered weakly. "I want to leave." Adrian's chest tightened painfully, because deep down, he realized something worse than being trapped underground. They weren't alone in the cave, and whatever was down there knew exactly how to lure people deeper. Another metallic clang echoed from below. Then faintly, very faintly, they heard dozens of voices whispering together somewhere in the darkness ahead. Not screaming, not growling. Talking, human conversations, as if an entire group of people lived somewhere beneath the mountain. Jenna stared into the darkness silently, then whispered, "How deep does this cave go?" No one knew, and somewhere far below them, something whispered softly through the tunnels. More came. Chapter 4. The Breathing Tunnel. Nobody wanted to move. But staying still inside a collapsing cave with something wearing human faces somehow felt worse. The metallic clang echoed again from deeper underground. Slow, rhythmic, like someone hitting stone with a tool. Adrian adjusted the weak flashlight beam ahead while trying unsuccessfully to steady his breathing. The tunnel beyond them narrowed sharply. The walls looked wet now, almost slick. And somehow, the deeper parts of the cave smelled different. Not damp, not earthy, rotten. Cole covered his nose immediately. Cole whispered, "What is that smell?" Nobody answered, because suddenly the tunnel moved. Very slightly, but enough for everyone to notice. Sienna stepped backward instantly. Sienna whispered, "Did the wall just—" The cave exhaled. A rush of warm air pushed through the narrow tunnel hard enough to move dust across the ground. Everyone froze. Jenna whispered weakly, "No, Then the tunnel inhaled. The air pulled back inward again. Like lungs. Cole looked genuinely terrified now. Cole whispered, "Nope, absolutely not." Adrian forced himself to think rationally. Adrian, there's probably an underground air pocket somewhere causing pressure changes. Nobody looked convinced, including Adrian. Another clang echoed below, closer now. Then came the whispering again, dozens of voices overlapping softly through the tunnels ahead. Impossible to understand clearly. Elias slowly looked deeper into the cave, then quietly whispered, "Someone's alive down there." Jenna immediately shook her head. Jenna, or something wants us to think that. Silence, because after what they saw in the squeeze, that felt much more believable. The tunnel narrowed again ahead, forcing them onto their stomachs. Sharp stone pressed painfully against their ribs while dirt scraped beneath their knees. Movement became painfully slow. The ceiling sat inches above their backs now, too tight to turn around properly, too tight to panic, which unfortunately made everyone panic more. Sienna's breathing quickened behind Adrian. Sienna whispered shakily, "I can't do this." Adrian looked back carefully, or tried to. The tunnel barely allowed movement. Adrian whispered softly, "Just keep moving." Sienna shut her eyes tightly, then forced herself forward again. The deeper they crawled, the warmer the cave became, which made absolutely no sense. Sweat rolled down Adrian's face while the tunnel continued narrowing impossibly tighter. Then suddenly, Cole stopped moving ahead. Adrian immediately tensed. Adrian whispered, "What's wrong?" Cole didn't answer immediately, then quietly whispered, "There's writing on the walls." Everyone froze. Jenna pushed closer, raising the flashlight carefully. Words covered the stone ahead, scratched deep into the cave walls. Hundreds of them. Some old, some fresh. "Help us, don't sleep, it mimics stay out, it knows your voice." Sienna stared at the messages in horror, then noticed something worse. Fresh scratches beneath the older writing. Very fresh. 3 words. "It is listening." The entire tunnel suddenly became silent. Too silent. Then, something breathed directly behind Sienna. Close. Sienna froze completely. Her flashlight shook violently in her hand. Slowly, very slowly, she turned her head. Darkness filled the narrow tunnel behind them. "Nothing there?" Then a voice whispered softly inches from her ear, exactly in Adrian's voice. "Don't move!" Sienna screamed instantly. Everyone panicked. Cole tried turning around too quickly inside the narrow passage. Got stuck immediately. Cole shouted, "Cole, I can't move!" The tunnel suddenly felt impossibly small. Adrian twisted around desperately, trying to reach Sienna, then froze, because something pale moved through the darkness behind her, crawling silently across the cave ceiling. Upside down, its limbs bent wrong, too long, too thin, and its face looked exactly like Sienna's. The creature smiled, then copied her scream perfectly. The sound echoed through the cave endlessly. Sienna completely broke. She started hyperventilating violently, trying to crawl faster through the narrow tunnel. Too fast, too panicked. Then suddenly, the cave floor beneath her collapsed. Sienna screamed as the ground disappeared, and Adrian grabbed her arm barely before she fell into the darkness below. His flashlight slipped from his hand. The beam spun downward into the pit beneath them, revealing something impossible, a massive underground chamber hidden below the tunnel. And at the bottom, dozens of pale human figures looked upward toward them, smiling, every single one wearing the faces of missing explorers. Then all of them whispered together, "Come down." The flashlight hit the darkness below and went out. Chapter 5. The Chamber Below. Adrian's arm burned from the strain. Sienna dangled above the darkness, screaming while loose dirt crumbled beneath them. Below. Dozens of pale faces stared upward, smiling unnaturally from the underground chamber. None of them blinked. None of them moved. They only watched. Cole pressed himself against the narrow tunnel wall, breathing hard. Cole whispered weakly, "What the hell are those things?" Jenna forced herself closer carefully despite the tight passage. Every movement scraped skin against stone. Jenna grabbed Sienna's other arm immediately. Jenna shouted, "Pull her up! Together!" They dragged Sienna back onto stable ground moments before another section of tunnel collapsed into the pit below. Sienna immediately curled against the wall, hyperventilating violently. Tears streamed down her face. Sienna whispered, "They were smiling at me." Nobody knew how to respond to that, because they all saw it too. Elias slowly looked down into the darkness beneath the broken floor again, then quietly whispered, "There's no way those are people." Adrian wanted to agree immediately, but something about the figures below felt disturbingly human. Too human. Then suddenly, one of the pale figures moved. Fast. Its head snapped upward unnaturally, eyes locking directly onto Adrian. And then, it copied his face perfectly. Same eyes, same expression, same terrified breathing. Adrian recoiled instantly. Adrian whispered weakly, "No, no, no." The creature smiled wider, then spoke in Adrian's exact voice. "You should have stayed outside." Cole immediately backed away through the narrow tunnel. "Cole, we are leaving." Nobody argued. The chamber below suddenly erupted with movement. The pale figures began climbing upward, fast, too fast. Their limbs bent unnaturally against the stone walls while dozens of voices echoed through the darkness, copying the explorers perfectly. Jenna shouted, "Move!" Everyone crawled desperately through the narrow passage ahead. Stone tore against their clothes and skin while panic destroyed any remaining calm. "Behind them!" The climbing sounds grew louder, closer. Adrian risked one glance backward, and immediately regretted it. One of the creatures was already halfway through the collapsed tunnel behind them. Its body twisted unnaturally to fit the narrow space, bones cracking loudly. Still smiling, it whispered softly in Sienna's voice. "Wait for me," Sienna screamed again. The tunnel ahead suddenly narrowed even further. Cole stopped instantly. Cole whispered in disbelief, "You've got to be kidding me." The next section was barely large enough for a person's shoulders. They would have to exhale completely just to squeeze through. "Behind them!" The creatures kept coming. Elias immediately moved first, flattening himself sideways against the stone, slowly forcing himself through the tiny opening. Rock scraped painfully against his chest and back. Elias grunted quietly. "Elias, it opens wider after this." Cole stared at the impossible gap. Cole whispered, "I physically hate this cave." Another voice echoed behind them, closer now, exactly in Daniel's voice. "Elias!" Elias froze mid-crawl. The tunnel went silent instantly. Then softly, very softly, Daniel's voice whispered again, "Please don't leave me again." Elias stopped breathing. Adrian immediately realized something horrifying. The creature knew things it shouldn't, because Elias never told them how his brother disappeared, or why he blamed himself. Jenna noticed too. Jenna whispered sharply, "Don't answer it." Elias squeezed his eyes shut tightly, then forced himself deeper through the narrow opening. The rest followed quickly. Adrian barely fit through. Stone crushed painfully against his ribs while dirt filled his mouth and nose. For one horrible second, he got stuck. Panic exploded instantly. The tunnel suddenly felt alive around him. Tighter. Closing. Adrian breathed harder, accidentally expanding his chest against the rock. Mistake. Now he couldn't move at all. Behind him, the crawling sounds grew closer rapidly. Adrian whispered shakily, "I'm stuck." Silence. Then Cole immediately shouted, "Cole, do not panic. which unfortunately caused Adrian to panic more. His heartbeat slammed violently against his ribs. The stone pressed harder. Air disappeared. Then suddenly, something touched Adrian's boot from behind, cold fingers, slowly pulling. Adrian nearly screamed. The creature whispered softly behind him, again using his own voice. "Let me help you." And somewhere deeper inside the cave, a loud metallic door slowly opened. Chapter 6. The Door Beneath the Mountain. Adrian couldn't breathe. Stone crushed against his chest from every direction while panic slammed through his body violently. And behind him, something cold kept touching his legs, slowly, carefully, like it was deciding where to grab him first. The creature whispered softly in his own voice. "Stop fighting." Adrian forced air out of his lungs desperately. Jenna's voice echoed ahead sharply. "Jenna, exhale." Adrian immediately pushed every bit of air from his chest. Pain exploded through his ribs as the stone tightened around him. Then suddenly, he slipped free. Cole and Elias grabbed his arms instantly, pulling him through the narrow opening moments before pale fingers lunged from the darkness behind him. The creature slammed against the stone violently. Its body twisted unnaturally, trying to squeeze through the crack, bones snapping loudly. But this opening was finally too small. The thing smiled anyway, then whispered softly, "You'll come back." Elias grabbed a loose rock nearby and shoved it hard into the narrow gap. Cole immediately helped. Together, they jammed stones into the opening until the creature disappeared behind darkness again. Silence filled the tunnel. Heavy breathing echoed around them. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Cole collapsed against the cave wall, exhausted. Cole whispered weakly, "I officially never want to enter another cave again." Sienna sat shaking silently nearby. Mud and dust covered her face now. Adrian looked toward her carefully, then quietly asked, "You okay?" Sienna laughed once, a completely broken laugh. Sienna replied, "Absolutely not." Nobody blamed her. The tunnel around them had changed again. This section looked older, artificial somehow. The cave walls were smoother here, not natural rock. Tool marks scratched across the stone surfaces, deep, ancient. Jenna slowly raised the flashlight higher, then froze. Symbols covered the walls ahead, hundreds of them. Circles, strange human shapes, long narrow tunnels carved repeatedly into the drawings. And every image showed the same thing, people crawling underground, while something watched them from the darkness below. Elias stepped closer, quietly studying the carvings, then softly whispered, "These are old. Very old." Some symbols looked almost worn smooth by time itself. Adrian frowned. Adrian asked, "Who would even build tunnels this deep underground?" Nobody answered, because suddenly, they all heard it, metal grinding against stone somewhere ahead. The massive door again, slowly opening. Cole immediately stood. "Cole, nope, we are not following scary underground door sounds." But Elias was already moving deeper into the tunnel. Jenna grabbed his shoulder instantly. "Jenna." "Elias." He stopped. Barely. Then quietly whispered, "If Daniel survived down here." A pause. "I can't leave him." Silence settled over the group again. Because deep down, everyone knew the same terrible truth. Nobody survives 4 years trapped underground. But after everything they'd seen tonight, nothing felt impossible anymore. The tunnel ahead widened slightly, allowing them to stand for the first time in nearly an hour. Everyone groaned in relief immediately. Backs cracked painfully, legs shaking. Then Sienna suddenly pointed her flashlight downward. Sienna whispered, "Guys!" The ground beneath them wasn't dirt anymore. It was concrete, old concrete. A narrow man-made corridor stretched deeper beneath the mountain. Complete darkness waited ahead. Cole stared silently, then whispered, "Why is there a hallway under a cave?" Adrian slowly swept his flashlight across the walls. Numbers were painted faintly onto the concrete, old faded warnings. Level 3, authorized personnel only. Everyone froze instantly. Jenna whispered, "No." Another faded warning appeared farther down the corridor. Hazard containment area. The temperature inside the tunnel suddenly dropped. Adrian's stomach tightened painfully. Because now, this didn't feel like a cave anymore. It felt hidden, buried on purpose. Elias slowly looked deeper into the darkness ahead, then quietly whispered, "Someone built this under the mountain, and somewhere far below." The metal door finished opening. A deep mechanical hum echoed through the underground corridor. Then the lights turned on. Dim red emergency lights flickered weakly through the darkness ahead, revealing a long underground hallway disappearing deep beneath the earth. And at the far end, someone stood motionless beneath the red lights watching them. A human figure, tall, still. Then slowly, the figure raised one hand and waved. Chapter 7, Level 3. Nobody waved back. The figure at the end of the hallway simply stood beneath the flickering red lights motionless, watching them. Adrian tightened his grip around the flashlight immediately, then quietly whispered, "Adrian, tell me that's an actual person." Nobody answered, because deep down, after everything underground tonight, none of them trusted anything human-shaped anymore. The red emergency lights buzzed softly above the corridor, revealing rusted pipes running across the concrete ceiling. Water dripped slowly somewhere deeper inside the underground facility. Cole stared around in disbelief. Cole whispered, "There's an entire structure under the cave." Sienna slowly raised her camera, shakily filming the corridor, then quietly asked, "Why would something like this be hidden beneath a mountain?" The figure at the end of the hallway suddenly moved. Everyone froze instantly. It stepped backward into the darkness, then disappeared completely. Jenna immediately whispered, "Nope." Elias started walking toward the hallway before anyone could stop him. Adrian grabbed his arm. "Adrian, you seriously think chasing mysterious underground people is smart?" Elias looked exhausted, desperate, then quietly replied, "If Daniel's alive down here." Nobody argued after that, because despite the fear, they all wanted answers now. The deeper they walked into the underground corridor, the less the place felt abandoned. Dust covered the floor, but not evenly. There were fresh drag marks across the concrete. Something heavy had been moved recently. Sienna noticed first. Sienna whispered, "Guys." Everyone looked down. Bare footprints covered part of the hallway ahead. Human footprints. But something about them felt wrong. The footprints were too long, too thin, and some of them showed impossible toe positions, like feet learning how to imitate human walking. Cole immediately stepped back. Cole, absolutely not. A loudspeaker suddenly crackled somewhere overhead. Static exploded through the hallway violently. Everyone jumped. Then a voice spoke. Old, weak, distorted. "If anyone hears this, leave immediately." The group froze instantly. The voice continued through heavy static. "Containment failed. They learned faster than expected." Adrian's heartbeat quickened painfully. The lights flickered again. "Do not trust appearances." Static screamed through the corridor. Then softly, almost whispering, "They copy everything." The recording suddenly cut out. Silence returned instantly. Nobody moved. Then Cole quietly whispered, "Cole, I hate every second of this." Further ahead, a large metal security door stood partially open. Level 3 Research Division. Deep claw marks covered the steel surface, and beneath them, dried blood. Sienna stared at the door silently, then whispered, "What happened here?" Adrian slowly pushed the metal door open wider. The room beyond looked like a destroyed underground laboratory. Old computers, broken glass, rust-covered medical beds, and written across one wall repeatedly in black paint. "Don't let them hear you!" Jenna's flashlight moved slowly across overturned desks and scattered papers, then suddenly stopped. A photograph sat on the floor. Adrian picked it up carefully. The image showed a group of underground researchers standing inside the cave years earlier, smiling, normal. But one thing immediately stood out. Behind the researchers, inside the darkness of the cave, something pale watched them, almost hidden. Long, thin arms, white eyes, and it was smiling. Sienna whispered weakly. It was there the whole time. Then suddenly, a loud banging echoed somewhere deeper inside the underground facility. Everyone jumped violently. Bang! 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 Like something trapped behind metal doors. Cole looked ready to collapse emotionally. Cole whispered, "No human being should be underground this long." Then a voice echoed faintly through the hallway ahead. Human, male, weak. "Help!" Elias froze instantly, because he recognized the voice immediately. Daniel. Elias ran toward the sound without thinking. Adrian shouted, "Adrian! Elias, wait!" Too late. Elias disappeared deeper into the underground facility. And somewhere in the darkness ahead, something else started running too. Chapter 8. The Mimic Room. "Daniel!" Elias's voice echoed through the underground facility while his footsteps disappeared deeper into the darkness ahead. Adrian immediately sprinted after him. Adrian shouted, "Adrian! Elias, stop!" The red emergency lights flickered violently overhead as the group rushed through the ruined hallway. The deeper they went, the colder the underground facility became. And the walls changed again. Less industrial, more damaged. Concrete had been ripped open in places, revealing natural cave tunnels beneath the structure, like the mountain itself had broken into the facility over time. Then suddenly, Elias stopped running. Everyone nearly crashed into him. Cole grabbed the wall, breathing hard. Cole whispered, "I am so done with cardio horror." Nobody listened, because ahead of them, a massive steel door stood wide open, and above it, faded warning letters barely remained visible. Mimic Behavior Observation Unit. Silence. Sienna slowly lowered her camera, then whispered, "No." The room beyond looked enormous, far larger than anything else underground. Observation windows lined the walls, most shattered. Old hospital beds sat overturned across the floor beside broken restraints and rust-covered equipment. But the worst part, the walls. Thousands of scratches covered them. Not random scratches. Tall marks, grouped carefully, like someone trapped inside had counted days, for years. Jenna slowly walked deeper into the room, then froze. Jenna whispered, "Oh my God." Everyone looked toward the far wall. Photographs covered it, hundreds of them. Missing people, cave explorers, rescue workers, researchers. Some photos were decades old, and beneath many of them, one word had been written repeatedly, copied. A cold feeling settled into Adrian's chest instantly. Then Sienna suddenly noticed something worse. One side of the wall held newer photographs, much newer. "Photos of them!" Everyone froze. Pictures taken outside Ravenhill Cave earlier tonight. Them unloading equipment, standing near the forest, cutting the fence. Cole stared in horror. Cole whispered, "How is that possible?" A loud metallic noise suddenly echoed from deeper inside the room. Clang! Everyone spun instantly. At the far end of the observation chamber, a dark tunnel descended deeper underground. And beside it, a wheelchair slowly moved on its own across the floor. Sienna backed away immediately. Sienna whispered, "Nope." The wheelchair stopped. Then something spoke from the darkness below. Weak, human. Elias. Elias immediately moved toward the tunnel. Again. Adrian grabbed him hard. Adrian, think. Elias looked completely broken now, then whispered, "That's him." Suddenly, the emergency lights went out. Darkness swallowed the observation room instantly. Sienna screamed softly, then one small light flickered on nearby. An old television screen. Static covered the monitor briefly. Then a video started playing. Old security footage. The group slowly gathered around the screen. A date flashed at the bottom. April 17th, 4 years ago. The exact day Daniel disappeared. The footage showed a research team inside the underground facility, escorting something through the hallways. The camera quality was terrible. Shaky. Dark. But Adrian could still see it. A pale human-shaped figure wrapped in restraints. Its limbs bent wrong, too long, too flexible, and its face kept changing. Every few seconds. A different face. Different eyes. Different people. The researchers looked terrified of it. Then suddenly, the creature stopped moving. Slowly. Its head turned toward the camera, and its face became Daniel's. Elias stopped breathing. The video continued. One researcher whispered shakily, "Researcher. Subject learned vocal mimicry after consuming tissue samples." Another researcher replied, "Researcher 2. It's adapting too fast." Then the video glitched violently. Static exploded across the screen, and suddenly, the creature appeared much closer to the camera, smiling. The footage ended instantly. Silence filled the room. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Then quietly, Cole whispered, "What does consuming tissue samples mean?" Nobody wanted to answer. A slow scraping sound echoed from the dark tunnel nearby. Then another voice whispered softly from below, exactly in Adrian's voice. "Don't look behind you." Adrian froze instantly, because he felt breathing against the back of his neck, warm, wet, and very real. Chapter 9. The Thing Behind Adrian. Nobody turned around. Nobody even breathed. The warm air behind Adrian's neck remained perfectly still. Too close. Then the voice whispered again softly, exactly in his tone. "If you move, it'll hear you." Adrian's hands started shaking instantly. Cole stood frozen across the room, staring directly behind him, and the expression on Cole's face told Adrian everything. Something was there. Something very close. Sienna whispered weakly. "Sienna." "Adrian." Jenna slowly raised her flashlight with trembling hands, then clicked it on. The beam illuminated the darkness behind Adrian, and everyone screamed. A pale face hung upside down inches from Adrian's shoulder, attached to a body crawling across the ceiling. Its limbs bent like broken spider legs against the concrete above them. And its face looked exactly like Adrian's. Same terrified eyes, same expression, same scar near his chin, only smiling wider. Far too wide. Adrian stumbled backward instantly. The creature dropped from the ceiling violently. Its body hit the floor wrong. Bones cracked loudly beneath pale skin while its limbs twisted unnaturally into place. Then it stood, human height now, still smiling. Cole whispered weakly, "Nope." The mimic tilted its head slowly toward Adrian, then softly whispered in his voice, "You look tired." Adrian grabbed a broken metal pipe nearby immediately. Adrian shouted, "What are you?" The creature twitched violently. Then suddenly, its face changed. Adrian's features melted unnaturally into someone else's. "Daniel!" Elias froze instantly. Daniel's face stared directly at him, then softly whispered, "Elias, help me!" Jenna immediately shouted, "It's copying him!" The creature smiled wider. Then all at once, its body began changing rapidly. Faces shifting every second, missing explorers, researchers, unknown people. like it couldn't decide which human shape to wear. Sienna backed away, shaking uncontrollably. Sienna whispered. It ate them. The mimic suddenly snapped its head toward her. Too fast. Then whispered in Sienna's exact voice, "Not all of them," and charged. The creature moved impossibly fast across the observation room, crawling on all fours again. Adrian swung the metal pipe instinctively. The pipe smashed into the mimic's shoulder with a sickening crack. The creature flew sideways, slamming into an observation window hard enough to shatter the remaining glass. But instead of screaming, it laughed. A horrible broken laugh using 5 different voices at once. Then the emergency light suddenly turned bright red. A loud automated warning echoed through the underground facility. Warning: containment breach detected, lockdown active. Massive steel doors began closing throughout the hallways around them. Cole looked terrified. Cole shouted, "Run!" Everyone sprinted toward the exit instantly. Behind them! The mimic crawled across the walls, chasing them through the observation room ceiling. Fast! Too fast! Its limbs cracked against concrete while dozens of stolen voices whispered together from its mouth. "Don't leave! Come back! Help me! It hurts!" Adrian nearly slipped as they burst into the hallway outside. Then suddenly, the steel security door ahead began shutting rapidly. Jenna screamed, "Move, move, move!" They dove forward, barely sliding beneath the closing door moments before it slammed shut behind them violently. Silence. Heavy breathing filled the hallway. Nobody moved. Then, something hit the other side of the steel door. Hard. Boom! The entire hallway shook. Another impact. Harder. Boom! The metal door bent inward slightly. Cole stared at it in horror. Cole whispered, "That thing is going to break through." Then suddenly, the emergency lights flickered off completely. Darkness swallowed the hallway again. A soft mechanical humming echoed nearby. Then another door slowly opened somewhere deeper underground. Cold air rushed through the corridor, and far away in the darkness, they heard human voices. Real voices. Crying. Dozens of people crying underground, Sienna whispered shakily. "That's impossible." Then an old speaker crackled overhead again. A weak male voice whispered through heavy static. "If you reached level 3, you need to listen carefully." The voice coughed painfully. "The mimics don't hunt randomly." Adrian slowly looked toward the darkness ahead. Then the voice whispered the sentence that made everyone freeze. "They're trying to escape the mountain." And behind the bent steel door, something smiled in Adrian's voice. Chapter 10. The Escape Route. The hallway went silent. Not empty, not safe. Silent in the way deep underground places become silent. Like the mountain itself was listening. Adrian stared at the bent steel door behind them, breathing hard. Another loud impact slammed against it from the other side. Boom! The metal warped inward further. Cole whispered weakly, "Cole, that door is not surviving another minute." The old speaker overhead crackled again violently. Static screamed through the hallway. Then the weak male voice returned. "If you can hear this, get to the lower elevator shaft." The man coughed painfully. "Wet. Wrong." "That's the only route still open." Jenna immediately shouted upward. "Jenna, who are you?" Several seconds passed. Then, quietly, "My name is Dr. Nathan Voss." Adrian frowned instantly, because the name sounded familiar. Then Sienna suddenly froze. Sienna whispered, "Oh my God." She quickly searched through the photographs she took earlier inside the observation room, then found one picture from the wall, a smiling researcher standing beside the underground team. Dr. Nathan Voss, except the photo was dated 18 years ago. Cole looked horrified. Cole whispered, "There's no way he's still alive." The speaker crackled again. "Dr. Voss, The mimics learned by studying us. Another violent bang hit the steel door behind them. Boom! The hallway lights flickered red. Dr. Voss continued quickly now. They copy voices first. A pause. Then, behavior. Adrian's stomach tightened painfully. Dr. Voss. But they cannot fully imitate fear. Silence. Sienna whispered quietly. What does that mean? Then suddenly, a voice answered from the darkness ahead. Exactly in Sienna's voice. It means they're getting better. Everyone spun instantly. A figure stood farther down the hallway beneath the flickering emergency lights. Sienna. Except the real Sienna stood beside them. Nobody moved. The second Sienna smiled softly, then began walking toward them slowly. Its movements looked almost human now, almost perfect. But one thing remained wrong. It never blinked. Cole backed away immediately. Cole whispered, "Nope, nope, nope." The mimic stopped several feet away, then softly spoke in Sienna's exact voice. "Mimic, you can't leave." Jenna raised the flashlight shakily. Jenna shouted, "What are you people?" The mimic tilted its head slowly, then quietly answered, "We were hungry." Silence. Then the thing smiled wider. "Mimic, then your people came underground." Adrian felt cold instantly, because suddenly he understood. The mimics weren't experiments. The researchers found them here, deep beneath the mountain. The mimic suddenly twitched violently. Its face glitched unnaturally between stolen identities. Then it whispered softly, "You opened the deep tunnels." Behind them, the steel security door finally broke. The metal exploded inward violently. The ceiling-crawling mimic burst through instantly. Everyone screamed. Cole immediately grabbed a loose fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it directly at the creature. The heavy metal cylinder smashed into its face hard enough to twist its neck sideways unnaturally. But the creature kept moving, still smiling. Adrian shouted, "Run!" They sprinted deeper through the underground corridors while emergency alarms screamed around them. Red lights flashed violently across the walls. The facility looked worse farther underground. Entire sections had collapsed, doors ripped open, blood smeared across concrete walls, and scratched repeatedly across almost every surface. "Don't let them out." The crying sounds grew louder now, much louder. Real people. Somewhere below them, Sienna whispered breathlessly. "There are survivors down here." Then Dr. Voss's voice crackled through another speaker nearby. "Dr. Voss, no." Everyone froze briefly. The old man sounded terrified now. Dr. Voss whispered, "Those are not survivors." The hallway lights suddenly died again. Darkness swallowed everything instantly. Then came the sounds. Dozens of footsteps surrounding them in the darkness. Human footsteps, but slightly off rhythm, like creatures pretending to walk like people. Sienna started crying quietly. Cole whispered weakly, "We're dead." Then one emergency light flickered back on overhead, and Adrian's blood turned cold instantly. The hallway around them was full of people, dozens of silent human figures standing motionless beneath the red light. Every single one wearing stolen faces, watching them, smiling. Then together, all of them spoke at once. "Don't leave us underground." Chapter 11. The faces in the dark. Nobody moved. The hallway was full of smiling faces, dozens of them. Men, women, children, researchers, missing cave explorers, all standing perfectly still beneath the flickering red emergency light. Watching. Adrian's breathing became uneven instantly, because some of the faces looked freshly copied. Too fresh. One of them wore Jenna's face, another wore Cole's. And standing near the back, a mimic stared directly at Elias using Daniel's face again. Smiling softly, Elias whispered weakly, "No." The mimic wearing Daniel's face stepped forward slowly, then quietly said, You left me here." Elias looked completely shattered. Jenna grabbed his arm immediately. Jenna whispered sharply, "Don't listen to it." The mimics around them twitched unnaturally beneath the red light. Then together, all of them tilted their heads at the exact same angle. Cole immediately whispered, "No human beings move like that." The hallway lights flickered violently. And suddenly, every mimic took one step closer at the same time. Adrian tightened his grip around the metal pipe instantly. Adrian shouted, "Back up!" Nobody moved. Then, one mimic quietly whispered using Sienna's exact voice, "Mimic, we don't want to hurt you." Another smiled wider. "Mimic, we just don't want to be alone anymore." The crying sounds deeper underground continued echoing softly through the facility. Human cries, begging, screaming faintly in the distance. And somehow, that was becoming the worst part. Because the deeper they went, the more human everything sounded. Dr. Voss's voice suddenly crackled loudly through a nearby speaker. "Dr. Voss, do not let them surround you." Instantly, the mimics charged. The hallway exploded into chaos. The creatures sprinted unnaturally fast beneath the red emergency lights, limbs cracking, bodies twitching. Cole swung a broken pipe wildly at the nearest mimic wearing his own face. The creature's jaws shattered sideways violently, but it kept smiling. Sienna screamed as another mimic lunged toward her, crawling across the wall sideways like a spider. Jenna grabbed a fallen flashlight from the floor and smashed it directly into the creature's eye. Black liquid sprayed across the concrete. The mimic shrieked, not human anymore. The sound echoed through the underground corridors like metal scraping against glass. Adrian shoved Elias toward the next hallway. Adrian shouted, "Move!" They sprinted through the underground facility while the mimics chased them through the darkness behind. Emergency alarms screamed overhead. Level 4, containment failure, evacuation. Impossible. The lower levels looked far older than the upper facility. Concrete walls slowly gave way to raw stone again. Ancient cave tunnels breaking through the man-made structure, like the mountain was swallowing the facility whole. Then suddenly, Adrian noticed something horrifying scratched across one wall repeatedly. "They are learning." Below it, newer writing, fresh, still wet. "So are we." Cole stared at the message briefly, then whispered, "What does that mean?" Nobody answered. Because suddenly, the hallway ahead opened into a massive underground shaft descending deep beneath the earth. The elevator shaft. It stretched downward forever. A rusted maintenance lift hung suspended above the darkness attached to old steel cables. And at the bottom, faint lights glowed far below. Jenna looked over the edge carefully, then immediately stepped back. Jenna whispered, "That's way too deep." A loudspeaker crackled again overhead. Dr. Voss sounded weaker now. "Dr. Voss, you need to go down." Adrian frowned instantly. Adrian shouted upward. "Why?" Static filled the shaft. Then quietly, very quietly, Dr. Voss whispered, "Because that's where they came from." Silence. Everyone stared into the darkness below the elevator shaft. Then the old man whispered something that made Adrian's blood run cold. "Dr. Voss. And the thing wearing Daniel's face," a pause, "isn't the first one." The light suddenly died again. Darkness swallowed the shaft completely. Then from somewhere far below, something enormous moved underground. Not running, not crawling, breathing, and slowly, very slowly, a giant eye opened beneath the darkness below the elevator shaft, watching them. Chapter 12. The Thing Beneath Level 4. Nobody spoke. Nobody even blinked, because far below the elevator shaft, something massive had just opened its eye. The red emergency light flickered weakly overhead, revealing only part of it beneath the darkness. a pupil the size of a car, watching them, breathing slowly beneath the earth. Cole stepped backward immediately. Cole whispered weakly. "No." Sienna grabbed the railing beside the shaft, trying not to collapse. Sienna whispered, "That's impossible." But deep down, none of them believed in impossible anymore. The eye below blinked once slowly. Then the entire shaft trembled. Dust rained from the concrete ceiling above them. Dr. Voss's voice crackled violently through a nearby speaker. "Dr. Voss, do not let it see you." Everyone instantly ducked away from the edge of the shaft. Too late. Something moved below. A deep sound echoed upward through the darkness. Not a roar, not an animal noise. Breathing. Huge, wet, ancient. And suddenly, the mimics behind them stopped chasing. Silence filled the hallways around the shaft. Adrian slowly looked back. The mimics stood motionless at the far end of the corridor now, dozens of them, watching the darkness below the shaft fearfully. One mimic whispered softly, "Mimic, it's awake." Another whispered immediately after, "Mimic, hide." Then all of them suddenly ran, not toward the explorers, away from the shaft, fast, terrified. Cole stared in disbelief. Cole whispered, "What could scare them?" The maintenance lift beside the shaft suddenly groaned loudly. Its rusted cables shifted slightly. A weak emergency light flickered on inside the lift, revealing old bloodstains covering the metal floor. Jenna looked horrified immediately. Jenna whispered, "People used this recently." Then suddenly, a loud metallic slam echoed far below. The giant eye disappeared instantly beneath the darkness. Silence followed. Adrian slowly stepped closer toward the edge again, against every survival instinct in his body. Then faintly, he saw movement below. Not one thing, many things. Hundreds of pale shapes moving across the cavern floor far beneath the facility. Mimics, and they were all crawling away from something deeper underground. Dr. Voss's voice returned shakily. "Dr. Voss, the mimics were never the predators." The words settled heavily over the group. Sienna whispered weakly, "Then what are they?" Static crackled loudly. Then Dr. Voss answered quietly, "Food." Nobody moved. Adrian felt physically cold, because suddenly, everything made horrible sense. The mimics copied humans because they were prey trying to imitate something stronger, something above ground, something safe. A deep sound echoed from below again. Closer now. A massive shape slowly moved beneath the darkness far below the shaft, too large to fully see. Then the facility light suddenly turned bright white. For one brief second, the cavern below became fully visible, and everyone screamed. An enormous creature covered the cavern floor beneath the facility. Not spider-like, not humanoid. Wrong. Its body looked buried into the rock itself, flesh merging with stone. Hundreds of pale arms extending from its massive body into tunnels spreading beneath the mountain. And attached to many of those arms, human bodies. Alive, moving weakly. Some missing for years, their mouths opened silently, trying to scream. Sienna dropped her camera instantly. Cole staggered backward in horror. Cole whispered, "Oh my God." Then Adrian saw something worse. Near the center of the creature, a human face slowly opened from its flesh. A real human face. Old, exhausted. Still alive. Dr. Nathan Voss. The old man looked upward toward them through the monstrous body. Tears streamed down his face. Then the speakers throughout the facility echoed his broken whisper. "Dr. Voss, it won't let us die." The lights suddenly shut off again. Darkness swallowed the shaft instantly. Then something enormous started climbing upward beneath them. Fast. Chapter 13. The Climb. The entire elevator shaft shook violently. Something massive was climbing upward beneath them. Fast. Steel cables snapped loudly somewhere below. Adrian grabbed Sienna immediately, pulling her away from the edge of the shaft. Adrian shouted, "Move!" The maintenance lift suddenly jerked upward violently on its own. Its rusted metal frame screeched against the rails while blood-covered cables tightened rapidly. And inside the lift, someone stood motionless. Daniel. Elias froze instantly. The lift continued rising slowly toward them. Daniel looked exactly the same as the photographs. Same clothes, same face, same exhausted eyes. And unlike the mimics, he looked terrified. Actually terrified. Daniel slammed both hands against the lift gate desperately. Daniel screamed, "Run!" The word echoed across the shaft. Real, human. Elias stumbled toward the lift immediately. Elias whispered, "Daniel." Then suddenly, the thing beneath the shaft moved closer. A gigantic pale arm burst upward from the darkness below, smashing against the elevator rails violently. Everyone screamed. The arm looked human only in the worst possible way. Too many joints, too many fingers. Skin stretched unnaturally across something far too large. The maintenance lift jerked sideways hard. Daniel grabbed the rails, trying not to fall. Then Adrian noticed something horrifying. Thin, fleshy cords extended downward from Daniel's back into the darkness below. Attached, feeding into the giant thing beneath the mountain. Daniel looked upward toward Elias, crying now. Then screamed, "It uses us to lure people down." The giant arm suddenly pulled the lift downward violently. Daniel screamed as the cables snapped loudly. Elias lunged forward instinctively. Adrian grabbed him barely in time. The maintenance lift disappeared back into the darkness below the shaft. Daniel's screams echoed upward, then stopped instantly. Silence. Absolute silence. Then, the thing below began climbing faster. The shaft walls trembled violently while massive wet sounds echoed upward beneath them. Cole stared downward, completely pale. Cole whispered weakly, "We need to leave now." Dr. Voss's voice crackled desperately through the speakers. "Dr. Voss, there's an emergency exit near the upper ventilation tunnels." Jenna shouted upward. "Jenna, how do we get there?" Static exploded loudly. Then Voss answered quickly. "Dr. Voss, level 2 west corridor." The speakers suddenly cut off violently. Then came screaming. Dr. Voss screaming somewhere deep below the mountain. The sound echoed through every speaker in the underground facility. Then abruptly, silence again. Adrian's blood turned cold instantly, because another voice replaced him moments later. A perfect copy of Dr. Voss's voice. Mimic voice. Too late. The emergency lights turned black. Not off. Black. Dark liquid spread inside the bulbs overhead like veins. Then the underground facility itself groaned loudly around them. Concrete cracked, metal bent. The mountain was moving. And suddenly, something enormous slammed against the underside of the elevator shaft. The entire floor collapsed beneath them instantly. Adrian fell. The world disappeared into darkness and screaming. Concrete shattered around them while everyone crashed downward through collapsing floors of the underground facility. Adrian slammed violently against metal before crashing onto concrete, hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. Pain exploded through his shoulder instantly. Dust filled the air around him. For several seconds, he couldn't hear anything except ringing. Then slowly, the screams returned. Sienna coughing nearby. Cole groaning somewhere in the darkness. Jenna calling names frantically. Adrian forced himself upright painfully. His flashlight flickered weakly beside him. He grabbed it immediately, then froze. They weren't inside the facility anymore. They had fallen into another cave system beneath it. Older, far older. The walls around them were covered in ancient carvings. Thousands of them. Every carving showed the same horrifying image. People crawling underground, toward a giant mouth beneath the earth. And above every image, one symbol repeated over and over. A giant eye. Watching. Cole slowly stood nearby, covered in dust and blood, then whispered weakly, "How deep are we?" Nobody answered. Because suddenly, a low breathing sound echoed through the darkness ahead. Close. Very close. Then a flashlight beam appeared somewhere deeper inside the ancient cave. Someone was standing there, watching them, and this time, it wasn't smiling. Chapter 14. The First Explorer. The flashlight beam remained perfectly still in the darkness ahead. Watching them, Adrian slowly raised his own flashlight with trembling hands. The ancient cave around them felt impossibly old. Older than the underground facility. Older than the tunnels. Like this place existed long before anyone built anything beneath the mountain. Sienna stood slowly beside him, coughing dust from her lungs. Then whispered shakily, "Sienna, who's there?" Silence answered her. The figure ahead didn't move. Cole groaned painfully while holding his injured arm. Cole whispered, "I swear, if that thing starts smiling." The figure finally stepped forward into the weak flashlight glow. An old man, thin, covered in dirt and dried blood, long gray hair hanging over exhausted eyes, and unlike every mimic they'd seen, he looked afraid, actually afraid. The man stared at them silently several seconds, then weakly whispered, "You shouldn't be here." Adrian immediately froze, because the voice sounded familiar. Dr. Nathan Voss. But that was impossible. The real Dr. Voss was attached to the giant creature below the facility, wasn't he? Jenna stepped forward carefully. Jenna whispered, "You're Dr. Voss?" The old man hesitated slightly, then softly nodded. "Dr. Voss, or what's left of him." The cave trembled faintly above them. Dust drifted slowly from the ceiling. Something huge still moved somewhere higher in the mountain. Adrian stared at the old man carefully, then quietly asked, "How are you alive?" Dr. Voss looked toward the darkness deeper inside the cave system, longer than necessary, then softly whispered, "It doesn't let people leave." Silence. The old man slowly walked closer into the flashlight glow, and everyone immediately noticed something horrifying. His legs, or what remained of them. Thin, pale growths spread across his skin like roots. Veins, flesh that didn't belong to him anymore. Sienna covered her mouth instantly. Dr. Voss noticed, then quietly said, "It changes you slowly." Cole whispered weakly, "Nope." Dr. Voss looked exhausted beyond words, then softly continued, "The mimics are only part of it." Adrian frowned immediately. Adrian asked, "Then what's the thing beneath the mountain?" The old man became silent, and somehow, that felt worse than any answer. Then finally, he whispered one sentence, "It's the cave itself." Nobody spoke. Nobody even processed the sentence immediately. Dr. Voss slowly pointed toward the ancient carvings covering the walls around them. Human figures crawling underground. The giant eye. The massive mouth beneath the earth. Dr. Voss whispered, "People think caves are empty spaces inside mountains." His tired eyes slowly lifted toward the darkness above them, then softly said, "But this mountain," a pause, "is alive." A deep sound echoed somewhere beneath the cave. "Breathing." The ground itself moved slightly beneath their feet. Adrian's stomach dropped instantly, because suddenly he realized the horrible truth. The warm air, the breathing tunnels, the moving walls. They were never inside a cave. They were inside something alive, Sienna whispered weakly. "No." Dr. Voss nodded slowly, then quietly explained, "It feeds through the tunnels." Cole stepped backward immediately. Cole whispered, "You're saying this entire mountain eats people?" Dr. Voss looked toward him sadly, then softly answered, "Not at first." Silence. The old man's flashlight slowly moved toward the deeper tunnel behind him. Ancient narrow passages stretched endlessly downward, too tight, too dark. Dr. Voss whispered, "It learns people first." Adrian's chest tightened painfully. Because deep down, he already understood. The mimics copied humans because the mountain studied them, learned them, prepared them, then consumed them. A loud cracking sound suddenly echoed through the cave above. Everyone jumped instantly. Dr. Voss's expression changed immediately. Fear, real fear. Then he whispered sharply, "It found you." The cave around them began moving. Not shaking, moving. The walls pulsed slowly like muscle beneath stone. And suddenly, the narrow tunnel behind them sealed shut. Solid rock folding together like flesh healing over a wound. Sienna screamed. Cole stumbled backward in horror. Adrian stared at the living walls, unable to breathe. Then somewhere deep inside the mountain, a voice echoed softly through the tunnels. Not copied, not human. Ancient, hungry, and impossibly deep. More. Dr. Voss slowly looked toward the endless darkness below, then whispered the sentence that shattered whatever hope remained. "It knows your names now." Far beneath them, something massive began crawling upward through the living tunnels. And this time, it wasn't sending mimics. It was coming itself. Chapter 15. The Heart of the Mountain. The tunnels began breathing faster. The walls pulsed around them violently now, like muscles tightening beneath skin. Adrian backed away instinctively while cracks spread across the stone floor beneath their feet. Sienna whispered shakily, "Sienna, this isn't possible?" But the cave answered her immediately. A deep inhale echoed through the tunnels around them. Then the entire mountain exhaled. Warm air blasted through the narrow passages hard enough to nearly knock them over. Dr. Voss grabbed Adrian's arm instantly. Dr. Voss whispered sharply, "We have to move now." The old man limped deeper into the ancient tunnel system, fast despite his condition. Nobody argued anymore, because somewhere beneath them, something enormous was crawling upward through the living mountain. And the sound it made, it sounded wet. The deeper they ran, the narrower the tunnels became again. Stone pressed painfully against their shoulders while the walls visibly moved around them now, slowly flexing. Cole nearly panicked instantly. Cole shouted, "The tunnel is closing!" He was right. The passage behind them tightened inch by inch after they passed through, like the mountain was sealing exits intentionally. Dr. Voss led them through a sharp turn deeper underground, then suddenly stopped. Everyone froze behind him. The tunnel ahead opened into an enormous underground chamber glowing faintly red from deep within the stone itself. And at the center, something massive pulsed beneath the ground. Adrian's flashlight shook violently, because it looked exactly like a giant heart. Not fully human, not fully organic, but alive. Huge veins spread outward through the walls and tunnels like roots beneath the entire mountain. Every breath inside the cave matched its rhythm. Thump. The walls pulsed. Thump. The entire chamber moved. Sienna whispered weakly, "Oh my God." Dr. Voss stared at the giant pulsing mass with exhausted eyes, then softly whispered, "This is where it sleeps." Cole looked horrified immediately. "Cole, you mean this is the thing controlling the cave?" Dr. Voss slowly nodded, then quietly explained, "It's beneath every tunnel." The realization hit Adrian instantly. The mountain wasn't alive, this thing was, and the entire cave system existed inside it. Suddenly, the giant heart pulsed harder. Thump. A horrible sound echoed through the chamber. Voices. Hundreds of voices whispering together from inside the walls. Missing explorers, researchers, rescue teams. All trapped inside the mountain somehow. "Help us. It hurts. Don't let it take me. Please." Sienna covered her ears, crying instantly. Cole backed toward the tunnel, breathing unevenly. Then Adrian noticed movement inside the walls. Human shapes pressed beneath the stone itself. Alive. People trapped inside the living cave. Their faces pushed weakly against the pulsing walls before sinking back beneath the flesh-like stone again. Jenna whispered weakly, "They're still alive." Dr. Voss shut his eyes briefly, then softly whispered, "Not completely." The chamber suddenly shook violently. Dust rained from above. And then, the giant heart opened. A massive vertical slit slowly split apart across its center, like an eye. Watching them, everyone froze instantly. The whispers stopped. Silence consumed the chamber. Then the mountain spoke again, not through mimics, not through copied voices. Its real voice. Ancient, deep, endless. "You came deeper." Adrian's chest tightened painfully. Because somehow, the thing sounded curious, not angry, hungry. Dr. Voss whispered sharply, "Don't answer it." The eye inside the heart widened slowly. Then the walls around the chamber began changing. Faces formed inside the living stone. Daniel, the missing explorers, researchers, all watching them. Then one face appeared larger than the others. Adrian's face. The mountain whispered softly, "You will stay too." Suddenly, the ground beneath Cole collapsed. He screamed as the living floor split open beneath him. Thin, pale arms burst from inside the pit, grabbing his legs instantly. Cole shouted in terror, "Get them off me!" Adrian lunged forward, immediately grabbing Cole's arm. But the pale hands kept pulling harder. More arms emerged from the pit, dozens of them. Human hands growing directly from the living flesh beneath the chamber floor. Cole screamed violently as the hands dragged him downward. Then one hand grabbed his face, and instantly, Cole stopped screaming. His expression went completely blank. The mountain whispered softly, "Learning." Cole slowly looked upward toward Adrian and smiled, far too wide. Chapter 16. The Smiling Hollow. "Cole!" Adrian pulled with everything he had, but the pale hands dragging Cole downward felt impossibly strong. The living pit beneath the chamber writhed violently. Human arms stretched from the flesh-like walls, grabbing at Cole's body desperately. And Cole wasn't fighting anymore. He simply stared upward, smiling blankly. "Far too wide," Adrian shouted. "Cole, snap out of it!" The mountain pulsed. Thump! The giant hard eye watched them silently from the center of the chamber. Then the ancient voice whispered softly through the walls. "He hears us now." Jenna grabbed Cole's other arm immediately, trying to pull him free. Sienna stumbled backward, crying uncontrollably, while the trapped human faces inside the walls whispered around them. "Don't let it inside your head. It learns through fear. Don't listen." Dr. Voss looked horrified, actually horrified, then suddenly shouted, "Cover his ears!" Adrian froze briefly, then instantly understood. The voice! The mountain was communicating somehow. Jenna immediately pressed both hands against Cole's ears while Adrian kept pulling him upward. For one horrible second, nothing changed. Then Cole blinked. The smile disappeared instantly. Cole screamed violently, "Cole, get them off me!" The pale hands tightened harder around his legs. Bones cracked loudly. Cole screamed again. Adrian roared desperately, pulling him upward with everything left in his body. And finally, the hands lost their grip. Cole came free violently, sliding across the chamber floor away from the pit. The living arms immediately retreated back into the flesh below. The pit sealed shut, like a mouth closing. Cole curled against the wall, hyperventilating violently. Adrian rushed toward him immediately. "Adrian! Cole!" Cole grabbed Adrian's jacket instantly. His eyes looked wrong, terrified beyond words. Cole whispered shakily, "It showed me things." The chamber pulsed again. Thump! The giant eyes slowly narrowed toward them. Then the mountain whispered softly, "You opened us." Dr. Voss stepped backward immediately. Dr. Voss whispered, "No." The walls around the chamber suddenly began splitting open. Long, narrow tunnels unfolded slowly from the flesh-like stone. New tunnels leading upward. Toward the surface, Adrian's stomach dropped instantly, because suddenly he understood what the mountain meant. The explorers hadn't discovered the cave. They opened it. The mountain was expanding, learning how to reach farther. Sienna stared at the growing tunnels in horror. Sienna whispered, "It's spreading." The mountain pulsed violently. Thump! Then all the human faces trapped inside the walls screamed together at once. "Not from pain! Warning!" Dr. Voss suddenly shouted. "Run!" The chamber exploded into movement. The giant heart began beating faster, violently shaking the entire cave system around them. Thump, thump, thump. The walls started closing inward. The mountain was trying to trap them. Everyone sprinted toward one of the newly opened tunnels, desperately squeezing through the narrow passage while flesh-like stone moved around them. The tunnel behind them sealed shut seconds later. Cole limped badly now, one leg clearly injured, but he kept moving, barely. The deeper they crawled upward, the hotter the tunnels became. The walls pulsed beside them constantly now, warm, alive. Then suddenly, Adrian heard voices ahead. Human voices. Real ones. People talking softly somewhere farther up the tunnel. Jenna froze instantly. Jenna whispered, "No!" Flashlight beams appeared ahead in the darkness. A group of people crawled through the tunnel toward them. 3 cave explorers, covered in climbing gear, terrified. One shouted immediately. "Explorer. Thank God we found people." Adrian's blood turned cold, because he recognized the exact same terrified expression, the same relief, the same panic. It looked real. Too real. Dr. Voss immediately whispered sharply, "Don't trust them." The 3 explorers kept crawling closer desperately. "Explorer, please help us." Then Adrian noticed something horrifying. Their knees weren't touching the ground properly. They were mimicking crawling, not actually doing it, like creatures pretending to understand human movement. The lead explorer smiled suddenly. Far too wide. Then whispered softly, "We learned faster this time." Behind them, hundreds of pale eyes slowly opened inside the living tunnel walls, watching, waiting, and somewhere far below, the mountain laughed for the first time. Chapter 17. The Tunnel That Learned. The smiling explorers blocked the narrow passage ahead. 3 human shapes crawling toward them through the living tunnel. Almost perfect. Almost. The lead mimic tilted its head slowly, then smiled wider. "Mimic, you look afraid," Cole whispered weakly behind Adrian. "Cole, I hate that they talk now." The tunnel walls pulsed harder around them, warm, flesh-like stone tightening slowly. And behind the mimics, hundreds of pale eyes opened inside the walls, watching silently. Blinking together, Adrian tightened his grip around the metal pipe, then quietly whispered, "Adrian, keep moving backward." The mimics immediately stopped smiling, like they understood. Then all 3 suddenly rushed forward together. Fast. Too fast for the narrow tunnel. Adrian swung the pipe instantly, smashing the lead mimic directly across the face. Its jaw twisted sideways unnaturally. But this time, it adapted. The creature caught the pipe mid-swing and smiled. Mimic. Learned that already. Adrian's blood went cold instantly. The second mimic lunged toward Sienna, crawling across the ceiling of the narrow tunnel like a spider. Sienna screamed as Jenna dragged her backward, barely avoiding the creature's hands snapping inches from her face. Cole grabbed a climbing flare from his bag desperately. Cole shouted, "Move!" He ignited the flare instantly. Bright red fire exploded through the tunnel. And for the first time, the mimic screamed. Not human screams. Animal. The creatures recoiled violently from the light, clawing at the tunnel walls desperately. The living cave pulsed hard around them. Thump. Then the mountain screamed too. The sound echoed through every tunnel beneath the earth. Deep, ancient, pain. Dr. Voss stared at the flare in disbelief, then whispered, "Light." The old man suddenly looked toward Adrian sharply. "Dr. Voss, it hates fire." The tunnel ahead twisted violently. The flesh-like walls pulled away from the burning flare instinctively, creating space, an escape route. Adrian immediately understood. Adrian shouted, "Keep the flare lit!" Cole grinned nervously, despite shaking uncontrollably. Cole, finally, something underground fears US. The group crawled desperately upward through the tunnel, while Cole held the burning flare ahead. The living walls retreated from the light continuously. But behind them, the mountain adapted quickly, too quickly. The eyes inside the walls slowly stopped blinking, stopped reacting, learning. Then the flesh tunnels suddenly changed color, darkening, hardening. The mountain was getting used to the fire. Dr. Voss noticed immediately, then whispered weakly, "No." A deep grinding sound echoed beneath them, and suddenly, the entire tunnel split open. A massive mouth formed inside the wall beside Adrian. Rows of human teeth emerged from living stone, snapping inches from his arm. Sienna screamed. Cole nearly dropped the flare. Then dozens more mouths opened across the tunnel walls, whispering together, "Stay. Don't leave. We're lonely." Jenna shoved Adrian forward desperately. Jenna shouted, "Move! Move! Move!" The tunnel ahead suddenly widened sharply. Fresh, cold air rushed toward them. Real air. Surface air. Everyone froze instantly, because after hours underground, they could smell rain, trees, night air. The surface. Cole almost laughed in relief. Cole whispered, "We made it." Then Dr. Voss looked terrified. Actually terrified. The old man grabbed Adrian violently. Dr. Voss whispered, "Don't stop." Adrian frowned instantly. Then he heard it. Voices. Human voices above ground. Dozens of them. People talking outside the cave entrance. Flashlights moved somewhere ahead near the surface opening. Rescue teams. Police. People had finally come looking for them. Sienna started crying instantly. Sienna whispered, "Oh, thank God." But Dr. Voss looked horrified instead. Then softly whispered the sentence that shattered all hope again. It learned the way out. Silence. Adrian slowly turned toward the tunnel behind them, and deep inside the darkness, thousands of pale faces were crawling upward through the living cave together, smiling, learning, following them to the surface. Chapter 18. The Surface. Rain poured through the forest outside Ravenhill Cave. After hours trapped beneath the mountain, it almost didn't feel real anymore. Flashlights moved frantically near the cave entrance while voices echoed through the trees. "Over here! I found the opening! Get medical kits!" Rescue teams, police, search crews, people! Sienna started sobbing instantly. Cole nearly collapsed from relief beside the tunnel exit. Adrian crawled toward the surface, breathing hard while cold rain hit his face for the first time in hours. And for one beautiful second, he thought they survived. Then Dr. Voss grabbed him violently. The old man's eyes looked terrified beyond words. Dr. Voss whispered sharply, "Don't let them near the cave." Adrian immediately looked back toward the darkness behind them. The tunnel had gone silent. Too silent. No crawling, no whispers, nothing. And somehow, that felt worse. One rescue worker rushed toward the cave entrance wearing climbing gear and carrying ropes. Rescuer. Jesus Christ, are there others down there? Adrian opened his mouth immediately, then froze, because Dr. Voss was staring at the rescuer in horror. Not fear, recognition. The old man whispered weakly. "No." Adrian frowned, then noticed something strange. The rescuer's movements looked slightly wrong, subtle, almost impossible to notice. But after hours underground, Adrian noticed. The man blinked too slowly. Then the rescuer smiled warmly. Far too wide. Dr. Voss screamed instantly. Run! Too late. The rescuer's jaw split open vertically down the middle of his face. Rows of pale human teeth unfolded outward unnaturally. Sienna screamed. The thing lunged toward them violently. Adrian shoved Sienna sideways, barely avoiding the creature snapping inches from his throat. And suddenly, the entire forest moved. Every flashlight near the cave entrance turned toward them at the exact same time. Every rescue worker stopped moving simultaneously. Then slowly, all of them smiled. Cole whispered weakly. No, the mimics were already outside. They escaped before the explorers reached the surface. Adrian's blood turned cold instantly, because suddenly he understood the real horror. The mountain never wanted to trap them underground. It wanted a way out. The mimic wearing the rescuer's face slowly stood upright again, its broken jaw folding back into place, then softly whispered, "Thank you for opening the tunnels." Behind it, the other rescue workers stepped forward together silently. Perfectly human now, almost impossible to distinguish. Dr. Voss backed away, breathing hard, then whispered, "They learned too much." Thunder exploded overhead. Rain poured harder through the forest. And somewhere beneath the mountain, the earth itself moved. The ground around the cave entrance suddenly split apart violently. Everyone stumbled backward. Then the mountain breathed. A deep inhale echoed beneath the entire forest. Trees bent inward toward the cave. Loose dirt collapsed. And from the darkness inside Ravenhill Cave, something enormous opened its eye. Not underground anymore. At the surface, the rescue mimics immediately turned toward it. Then together, every single one knelt. The giant eye stared directly at Adrian, watching him, learning him. Then the mountain spoke softly through every mimic mouth at once. "We are finally outside." Panic exploded across the forest. Some real rescue workers started screaming nearby. Others ran blindly into the trees. But the mimics moved faster. Far faster. Adrian watched in horror as one mimic tackled a fleeing officer into the mud, then instantly copied his face. Another mimic turned toward the forest road leading back to town. Smiling, Sienna whispered weakly, "It's spreading." Dr. Voss looked completely broken, then quietly whispered, "This is how every civilization beneath the mountain disappeared." Silence. Adrian slowly looked toward the highway lights far beyond the forest, toward the sleeping town nearby, completely unaware of what just emerged from underground. Then suddenly, the giant eye blinked, and every mimic in the forest looked toward Adrian together, smiling, because the mountain had learned one final thing underground: how humans escaped. Chapter 19. The Town That Smiled. Rain hammered the forest as the survivors ran. Branches snapped beneath their feet while distant screams echoed from the cave entrance behind them. Adrian didn't look back, because every time he did, there were more mimics. Some wore rescue workers' faces, some wore police uniforms, and some already looked like people from town. The mountain was learning too fast. Cole limped badly beside Adrian, breathing unevenly, while Sienna struggled to keep pace through the mud. Dr. Voss moved slower now, much slower. The pale growths beneath his skin spread farther across his neck with every passing minute. Jenna noticed first, then quietly whispered, "Voss." The old man avoided looking at her, which was answer enough. Thunder exploded overhead. Then suddenly, headlights appeared through the trees ahead. A sheriff's truck skidded to a stop near the forest road. A middle-aged officer jumped out immediately holding a flashlight. "Officer, Jesus Christ, what happened?" Adrian froze. Nobody trusted faces anymore. The officer noticed instantly, then slowly lowered the flashlight. "Officer, hey, I'm real. Silence. Cole whispered weakly. That's exactly what a fake person would say. The officer looked deeply confused. Then behind him, a woman stumbled out of another emergency vehicle crying hysterically. Real panic, real fear. Too messy to imitate. Dr. Voss exhaled shakily, then whispered, They're still human. For now. Adrian immediately stepped forward. Adrian shouted, You need to evacuate the town now. The officer frowned. Officer, slow down. What are you talking about? Then screaming erupted from the forest behind them. Everyone turned instantly. Flashlights moved violently between the trees, people running, something chasing them. And then a rescue worker burst from the forest, covered in blood. He sprinted toward the road desperately. Rescue worker, help me! The officer rushed forward instinctively. Huge mistake. The rescue worker suddenly stopped running, smiled. Then his body split open violently. Pale arms unfolded from inside his chest like something wearing skin incorrectly. The creature lunged. Adrian screamed, Get back! Too late. The mimic tackled the officer into the mud violently. Everyone heard bones crack. The officer screamed once, then suddenly stopped. And moments later, the thing wearing his face slowly stood up, smiling. The woman near the emergency truck screamed hysterically and ran toward the road. 3 more mimics burst from the trees immediately chasing her. Cole stared in horror. Cole whispered, They're hunting now. Dr. Voss grabbed Adrian's arm desperately. Dr. Voss, if they reach the town... Gunshots suddenly exploded across the road. Bang! 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 Real officers opened fire toward the mimics sprinting from the forest. One mimic dropped instantly, but another kept running despite half its face missing, still smiling. The officers panicked immediately. One shouted, Officer, what the hell is that thing? Then the forest moved. Not the trees, the ground. The entire mountain beneath Ravenhill Cave pulsed violently. Thump! Every mimic froze simultaneously. Then slowly, all of them looked toward the town lights in the distance, watching, learning. The giant eye inside the cave blinked somewhere far behind the trees. And suddenly, every streetlight in town went dark. The entire valley lost power instantly. Silence spread across the mountain. Then phones began ringing. Every officer, every rescuer, every phone at once. One terrified deputy slowly answered his, then froze. Deputy, Mom? A voice whispered softly through the phone speaker, exactly in his mother's voice. Come home. The deputy's expression changed instantly. Blank. Then he smiled. Adrian's blood turned cold. Because the mimics weren't just copying faces anymore. They were spreading through voices. Through phones, through sound itself. Dr. Voss looked completely horrified, then whispered, It adapted. Suddenly, car alarms started screaming throughout the town below. More lights flickered back on in houses across the valley. Human silhouettes appeared in windows, people waking up, confused, unaware, and deep inside the forest. Hundreds of pale, smiling faces slowly emerged from the darkness together. Walking toward the town, not running anymore, blending in, learning how humans moved, how humans spoke, how humans lived. Adrian stared toward the sleeping town in horror, then quietly realized the worst part. By morning, nobody would know who was real anymore. Chapter 20. The Voices in Hollow Creek. By 3:17 a.m. Hollow Creek stopped feeling like a real town. Rain continued pouring across empty streets while police sirens echoed somewhere in the distance. But the disturbing part. The town looked normal. Lights glowed inside houses. Cars moved slowly through intersections. People walked beneath umbrellas. And Adrian no longer knew which of them were human. The survivors hid inside an abandoned gas station near the edge of town while emergency broadcasts crackled through an old radio behind the counter. Residents are advised to remain indoors. Static. Multiple violent incidents reported near Ravenhill. Static again. Then, silence. Cole sat against a storage shelf, breathing hard, while Jenna wrapped his injured leg with torn fabric from an old first aid kit. Sienna stood near the front windows, shaking uncontrollably, watching the rain outside. And Dr. Voss looked worse every minute. The pale growths beneath his skin now spread across half his face, moving slowly beneath the flesh. Adrian noticed, then quietly asked, "How long do you have?" Silence filled the gas station. Dr. Voss stared toward the rain outside, then softly whispered, "Not long enough." No one spoke after that, because deep down, they all knew the truth now. The mountain didn't just kill people, it changed them. A television mounted near the ceiling suddenly flickered alive. Everyone jumped instantly. Emergency news footage filled the screen. Police lights flashed across downtown Hollow Creek while terrified reporters shouted over the chaos. "Reporter, authorities are responding to multiple violent attacks across the valley." The camera feed shook violently. Then behind the reporter, a paramedic slowly turned toward the camera, smiling. Far too wide. The live broadcast cut instantly. Static filled the screen. Then a new image appeared. A cave tunnel. Everyone froze. The television now showed a dark, narrow passage underground. Something moved inside it, crawling toward the camera slowly. And then the thing spoke, using Adrian's voice. TV voice. "Come back underground." The television shut off instantly. Cole whispered weakly. "It's inside the broadcasts now." Thunder exploded outside. Then suddenly, someone knocked on the gas station door. Everyone froze. 3 slow knocks. Exactly like the cave. "Knock, knock, knock," Sienna whispered shakily. "No." Another knock echoed softly through the building. Then a familiar voice spoke from outside. "Adrian?" Adrian's blood turned cold instantly, because the voice belonged to his younger sister, Maya. Impossible. She lived 2 towns away. Adrian slowly moved toward the front windows. Jenna grabbed his arm immediately. Jenna whispered sharply, "Don't." Outside, a young girl stood beneath the rain wearing Maya's yellow jacket, crying softly. "Maya, please let me in." Adrian's chest tightened painfully, because it looked exactly like her. Every detail perfect. The thing outside knocked again softly. "Maya, I'm scared," Cole whispered weakly. "It's copying memories now." The fake Maya slowly lifted her head and smiled, far too wide. Then suddenly, dozens of silhouettes appeared behind her in the rain. More smiling people, standing silently beneath flickering streetlights. Watching the gas station, Dr. Voss looked toward the back exit immediately, then whispered, "It found us." The lights inside the gas station suddenly died. Darkness swallowed the room instantly. Outside, every smiling figure slowly raised their heads toward the windows together. And then, every phone inside the gas station rang at once. Cole looked at his screen trembling, then whispered weakly, "It's my mom." Sienna's phone showed her father calling. Jenna's showed her dead grandfather, and Adrian's phone displayed one impossible name, Daniel Ward, Elias's missing brother. The phone continued vibrating inside Adrian's shaking hand. Then a text message appeared. "It's already inside the town." Outside, every smiling figure stepped closer to the gas station together. And somewhere deep beneath Hollow Creek, the mountain breathed. Chapter 21. The Smiling Town. The gas station stood silent in the darkness. Only rain and vibrating phones filled the room now. Outside, the smiling people kept getting closer. Slowly. Not rushing, not attacking. Like they already knew escape was impossible. Adrian stared at the message on his phone again. It's already inside the town. His stomach twisted painfully, because deep down, he knew Daniel was really down there somewhere, or what remained of him. Another text appeared instantly. Don't trust the quiet ones. Then the phone screen went black. Cole backed away from the front windows, breathing hard. Cole whispered weakly, "They're surrounding the building." He was right. More silhouettes emerged through the rain outside. Men, women, children, all smiling, all watching silently through the glass. And the worst part, some of them looked completely normal now. Too normal. Dr. Voss slowly stepped away from the group. Adrian noticed immediately, then frowned. Adrian. Voss? The old man avoided eye contact, a terrible sign, then quietly whispered, "It's inside me, deeper now." The pale growths beneath his skin visibly moved across his face. Sienna stepped backward instantly. Sienna whispered, "No." Dr. Voss looked exhausted, broken, then softly said, "I spent 18 years trying to stop it." Thunder shook the town outside. The smiling figures remained perfectly still beneath the rain, waiting. Dr. Voss looked toward Adrian carefully, then whispered, "It learns through connection." Adrian frowned immediately. "Adrian, what does that mean?" The old man pointed toward the phones, the televisions, the radio, then quietly explained. "It copied humans underground." A pause. "Now it's copying communication." Silence. Cole slowly realized the implication first. Cole whispered weakly, "The internet." Dr. Voss nodded once, then softly whispered, "If it reaches the networks." Nobody wanted him to finish that sentence, because they already understood. The mountain didn't need caves anymore. It only needed access to people. Suddenly, a loud crash exploded from the back of the gas station. Everyone jumped violently. Glass shattered somewhere in the storage room. Then silence. Jenna immediately grabbed a metal crowbar nearby. Jenna whispered sharply, "Stay together." Adrian slowly moved toward the back hallway, flashlight shaking in his hand. The storage room door stood slightly open. Darkness inside. Then a weak voice whispered softly from within, "Help!" Adrian froze instantly, because the voice sounded human, real. A young boy stepped slowly from the darkness, maybe 10 years old, crying, covered in mud and blood. "Boy." "Please, they killed my parents," Sienna gasped softly. Cole whispered, "No." The boy stumbled forward, shaking violently. "Boy, please don't leave me." Adrian's chest tightened painfully, because the fear looked real, too real. Then Dr. Voss whispered sharply, "Don't let him close." The boy immediately stopped crying. Silence filled the room. Then slowly, the child smiled, far too wide, and his jaw split open vertically. Jenna swung the crowbar, instantly smashing the mimic across the face violently. The creature shrieked. Not human anymore. Its body unfolded grotesquely from the child disguise, revealing long pale limbs beneath torn skin. Then suddenly, every smiling person outside the gas station looked toward the building at once. The mimic screamed again, and all the windows shattered inward simultaneously. The town rushed inside. Dozens of mimics flooded through the gas station, violently crawling across walls and ceilings, while stolen human voices screamed around them. "Don't run! Stay with us! You opened the tunnels!" Cole grabbed a flare, immediately igniting it. Bright red fire exploded through the darkness. The mimics recoiled violently, hissing from the light. Adrian shouted, "Back exit!" Everyone sprinted through the storage room desperately, while the gas station behind them disappeared beneath screaming, pale bodies. Rain slammed against them the moment they burst outside again. The town looked wrong now, too quiet. Most houses stood dark, but silhouettes watched from windows everywhere, smiling. Streetlights flickered weakly through the storm, and beneath the entire town, The ground slowly pulsed, like a heartbeat. Thump. Everyone froze instantly. The mountain wasn't staying beneath Ravenhill anymore. It was spreading under Hollow Creek itself. Dr. Voss looked toward the church at the center of town, then whispered weakly, "That's where it's growing." Adrian followed his gaze. The church stood completely dark atop the hill overlooking the town. Except for one thing. The bell tower was moving, slowly bending sideways unnaturally, like something enormous was pushing upward beneath it. And then the church bell rang. Not once, 23 times, one ring for every person who disappeared inside Ravenhill Cave. And after the final bell, every smiling person in town opened their mouths together, then whispered in one voice, "Come below." Chapter 22, The Hollow Below. Final chapter. Rain poured across Hollow Creek as the church bell finally fell silent. And for one terrible moment, the entire town stopped moving, only the sound of the mountain breathing beneath the streets. Thump. The ground pulsed beneath Adrian's feet again. Cracks spread slowly across the road leading toward the church hill. Streetlights flickered violently. Windows shattered across nearby houses. And then, the earth opened. People screamed throughout town as massive cracks split through streets and buildings. Long, pale tunnels forced themselves upward from beneath Hollow Creek, like veins tearing through skin. The mountain was surfacing. Sienna stared in horror. Sienna whispered weakly, "It's turning the whole town into tunnels." She was right. The roads themselves were changing. The ground stretched unnaturally, breathing, moving. And every smiling mimic in town slowly began walking toward the church together. Like they were being called home. Dr. Voss nearly collapsed beside Adrian, breathing unevenly. The pale infection now covered almost his entire neck and jaw. Then weakly whispered, "There's only one way to stop it." Adrian looked toward him immediately. Dr. Voss stared at the church hill silently, then softly said, "The heart." Silence. Cole frowned painfully. "Cole, you mean that thing underground?" Dr. Voss nodded weakly, then quietly explained, "The mountain grows through it." Lightning exploded across the sky above Hollow Creek. The church tower suddenly bent farther sideways unnaturally. And then, something enormous began emerging beneath it. Not fully visible, not fully formed, just movement beneath flesh-like earth. Adrian looked toward the terrified town around them. The people running, the screams, the mimics blending among them perfectly now, and realized something horrifying. By sunrise, the entire valley would be infected. Maybe farther. Dr. Voss grabbed Adrian's arm desperately, then whispered, "You have to burn the heart." Cole immediately shook his head. "Cole, with what?" Dr. Voss slowly looked toward the gas station behind them, burning in the distance. Fuel. Adrian instantly understood, then looked toward the church hill, toward the tunnels opening beneath it, toward the thing growing below Hollow Creek, and quietly whispered, "We ended underground." The church doors stood open when they arrived. No lights inside, no people, only darkness. And beneath the altar, a massive tunnel pulsed open like a wound in the earth itself. Warm air breathed upward from inside. "The mountain waiting for them." Cole looked terrified. Cole whispered weakly, "I really hate caves now." Nobody laughed. They climbed downward one final time. The deeper they descended, the more human the tunnels became. Faces moved beneath the walls, whispering softly, watching. "Stay. Don't leave. It's warm below." Sienna cried silently while Jenna held the fuel can tightly beside her. And somewhere beneath them, the giant heart beat louder. Thump, thump, thump. Finally, the tunnels opened into the heart chamber again, except now, it had grown. Massively. The giant eye inside the heart stared directly at them waiting, and surrounding the chamber, Hundreds of human bodies remained trapped inside the living walls, still breathing, still alive. The mountain whispered softly, "You returned." Adrian stepped forward slowly, then quietly asked, "Why are you doing this?" Silence filled the chamber. Then the ancient voice answered, "We were alone." The heart pulsed violently. Faces inside the walls twitched painfully. "We learned your voices." A pause. "We learned your shapes." Another pulse. "We wanted to become you," Sienna whispered weakly. "Oh my God." The mountain truly didn't understand what it was doing. It wasn't evil. It was hungry, lonely, ancient. And learning humans was the only way it knew how to survive. Then the giant eye narrowed toward Adrian slowly. "You opened us." The walls around the chamber suddenly shifted violently. The exit sealed shut instantly. The mountain realized what they brought. Fuel, fire. The whispers turned frantic. "No fire. Please. It hurts. Don't burn us." Dr. Voss stepped forward, trembling violently now. Then softly whispered, "It already took my life." The pale infection spread across his entire face completely. He looked toward Adrian one final time, then smiled sadly, and grabbed the fuel can. Adrian immediately shouted, "Voss, wait!" Too late. Dr. Voss ran directly toward the giant heart. The mountain screamed instantly. Not through speakers, not through mimics. Its real scream. The walls erupted violently, trying to stop him. Pale arms burst from the floor. Mouths opened throughout the chamber. But Voss kept running. Then finally, he poured the fuel across the heart. The giant eye widened in terror. And for the first time, the mountain sounded afraid. Dr. Voss looked toward Adrian one last time, then whispered softly, "Don't let it reach the world," and ignited the flare. Fire exploded across the chamber instantly. The heart screamed. The entire mountain shook violently. Faces trapped inside the walls screamed together as flames spread through the living tunnels beneath Hollow Creek. Adrian grabbed Sienna immediately. Jenna pulled Cole toward the collapsing tunnel behind them, and together, they ran. The cave collapsed around them violently while fire spread through the breathing tunnels beneath the town. The mountain screamed endlessly behind them. Then finally, the heartbeat stopped. Thump. Silence. The tunnels died instantly. The walls stopped moving. The whispers vanished. And somewhere beneath Hollow Creek, the ancient thing beneath the mountain finally stopped breathing. Hours later, dawn slowly rose across the valley. Smoke drifted from the collapsed church hill while emergency crews searched through the destroyed streets. Many people survived. Many didn't. But the smiling faces were gone. The mimics were gone. And Ravenhill Cave collapsed completely beneath the mountain forever. 3 weeks later. Adrian sat alone outside the rebuilt memorial near Hollow Creek, watching spring wind move through the trees quietly. Cole survived. Sienna survived. Jenna survived. But sometimes, late at night, they still heard knocking inside walls. 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Adrian tried not to think about it anymore. Until one evening, his phone vibrated. Unknown number. 1 new voicemail. Adrian froze, then slowly pressed play. Static filled the speaker briefly. And then, a familiar voice whispered softly from somewhere deep underground. Daniel Ward. It's still alive. The voicemail ended. And somewhere far beneath the earth, something breathed.